You are now listening to the A2J2 podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the A2J2 podcast, a podcast that is finally back in its original form. How y'all doing, fellas?
Doing good, man. Doing even better than the Mascotology, the Hurricanes, going to the Final Four.
How about
So
that?
we
How
were right
about
about
that?
one thing.
We were right the whole time.
Yeah, we knew what we were talking about.
How do you stop a hurricane? You can't. You can't.
Yeah,
Hurricanes
That
whip
is
right
funny.
through Texas. We all know that. It just happens.
That's very true.
Longhorns flying.
Yeah, I'm just rooting heavily for Miami. I'm going to put that out there right now just because of the Mascotology pick. But it's good to have everybody back, be back in our original form. I think that we all probably have a serious illness right now. We probably need to be institutionalized. That illness is madness. And the madness is the madness of March, which is about to spill over into April this weekend. But today we are going to talk some March Madness. We're going to recap the tournament thus far, and we are going to talk about what we think is going to happen this weekend and next Monday. So I'm looking forward to that.
Straight off the jump, is this the wildest March Madness that we've been alive for? Like,
Without a doubt.
Dude,
it's not even
yes, sir.
close, right? So
Yep.
it's awesome. I mean, I'm loving it.
Oh yeah, I love it as well. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll get to our first point, but before we do, our resident soothsayer, Austin Curtis, actually has a non-NCAA tournament prediction he would like to get on the record right now, just in case it happens. So, Austin, take the floor.
So, I've been thinking. I've been looking, watching Twitter, watching all this what this man is talking about, seeing what his agent is saying, everything onward. Watch Shane Steichen say that they're bringing in a guy. Okay? That kind of preludes what I'm saying. But I believe that before the NFL draft happens, there will be a Lamar Jackson trade to the Indianapolis Colts. And this is why. Shane Steichen isn't going to write a new offense. That was his offense they were running in Philadelphia that now Nick Sirianni is using. It is a heavy RPO offense with a good O-line, a fast mobile quarterback to make the linebackers stay back, and you're going to run the ball heavy with the running back. You have Jonathan Taylor there. They're going to bring in Lamar to fill the Jalen Hurts spot in that lineup, in that roster. They'll probably have to go get a wide receiver because I don't believe Michael Pittman's the guy. As much as everybody hypes up Michael Pittman, it's just a fitting move. They have the 4th overall pick, which I believe a 4th and a 3rd. You could go get Lamar Jackson, in my opinion. I know they're saying it's 2 firsts, but I feel you offer the 4th overall and a 3rd round pick, you can probably get what you need out of it. And I think if they get that with not Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson and Jonathan Taylor, freakish offense. It would just be disgusting with those two in the
have
backfield.
a really good offensive line. So it just they have good weapons. Michael Pittman, I mean, like you said, so that would be sick. If that happened, that would be nasty.
That would be huge. Yep.
Yeah.
You can see it happening. It just the picks seem right, the coaches seem right, the fact that he wants out, the fact that they wouldn't want to talk about it because the other people drafting at that time period are the AFC South, correct? Right around in that same area. They're not going to want to go throw out that they're going to go get their guy. They're going to want to make the move last second so that they're not having people trade around, make moves. You know, they're going to want to keep everybody else on their toes. I can see this coming down to the night of, like right before the draft, we find out, and Lamar is moving. It's going to be Adam Schefter standing there on the stage. So we're finding out about this on my phone. It's all going to happen. It's all going to happen. It's going to be the same thing.
If that does happen, do you think he's going to get a fully guaranteed with Indianapolis?
You know, why can't I think of the owner? What's the owner? Irsay.
Irsay?
Irsay is a crazy man. I think he might. I think he could give a $230 million guaranteed contract and just be like, hell yeah, this is our guy. We're believing this system. It just worked for Philadelphia. Let's go get a number 1 wide receiver for him, bring him in, and see if Shane Steichen is the reason or was Nick Sirianni.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if you've been willing as a franchise to waste 3 years with Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, and Matt Ryan, why not? You know, we talked about it last week. It just takes one team. And I think it would be a pretty solid decision on their part to get a guy like Lamar, especially in a division that is not very competitive. Well, it is competitive because they're not very
Jacksonville.
good.
Well, Jacksonville
Yeah,
now.
Jacksonville now.
They're coming
That's
up.
the only team that you have to fight
Yeah.
with. But
Yeah.
but you're talking Lamar Jackson here, who can flip the whole division on its head. So
Yeah.
I'd like to see that
Especially-
come to fruition.
especially in that offense. And I believe that James, you want to wish this happens too, just for the fact of one, you have Do you still have Jonathan Taylor in our keepers league?
Rated him.
Oh, never mind then. But also, I think. Oh, yeah. All right.
He's got Josh
Well,
Jacobs though. He's going to keep him.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep Josh Jacobs for sure.
I think if this happens, this is the perfect storm for James' hate. The hate storm of James. I think Will Levis goes at 4 then to Baltimore, and he will be god awful because they don't offer any kind of offensive packages for their. He's gonna suck, and James is just gonna live in his little joyous little hatred ball over there, and it's gonna be funny to watch.
I can't wait if that happens. But I know I'm going to say this right now because my dad listens to our podcast every week. I know he's going to text me about this, so I'm just going to give him his shout out right now. He will text me and say, as a Titans fan, I really don't want Lamar Jackson in the division. It's like, yeah, obviously you don't.
Nobody does, yeah.
Yeah.
But as an Eagles fan, it affects me not.
Yeah, but if you're your dad in that situation, there's only one team you can be mad at, and that's the Titans for not going
Doing
to
the same
Lamar
thing.
Jackson themselves. Because if they get Lamar Jackson, they're in the same position that the
Derrick
Colts.
Henry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
It'd be stupid. So I think it's him going to the Colts. That would be nasty, and it's a decent prediction. We'll see what happens. I honestly still think he ends up back in Baltimore. Maybe we can put another 6-pack of beer on that. But I think he just ends up back in Baltimore.
You want to know what's real funny? I have in my notes here possible double or nothing bet with Jordan if he has the opposite opinion. I'm not going to tell you where it ends up in these notes, but if it does come up, we might be double or nothing. So
sounds good. So
Also,
we'll take it off the Lamar Jackson thing. We'll talk about it later.
we'll talk about that later. There's possible betting going on.
little foreshadowing. I'm here for
Yeah.
it. So that'll bring us into our main topic tonight, and that is the NCAA tournament. And the first thing I want to ask you all, because I got in this discussion with one of my students today. He was angry. He said this March Madness sucked, which it certainly doesn't.
No.
His argument was because his bracket was terrible. So the madness of March is so much better than a solid bracket. And I'll say this, just for me personally, I've spent the last few years coaching middle school and high school baseball during this time of year. I mean, last year, as a North Carolina fan, and I know some of our listeners will be like, you're a Tennessee fan. Yes, but I was 5 years old when Space Jam came out, and I've been a North Carolina fan since then. That's neither here nor there. North Carolina fan last year, when they beat Baylor, coaching a JV baseball tournament, whenever they played Duke in the Final Four, I was driving back from Knoxville. Whenever they played in the national championship, I was coaching a baseball game like an hour and 45 minutes away from my house. I had kind of thought I'd kind of fallen out of love with college basketball. It was really sad because this was a sport that I used to be the most fanatical about. It just was, especially in high school and in college. And then, early on in my career as a teacher before really getting, thrown into the fire of coaching so many sports. And this tournament has reminded me why I love college basketball.
Yeah.
The beauty of it, the unpredictability of what might happen when a 16 seed beats a 1, which we're going to talk about when a 15 seed beats a 2, which has continued to happen over the past 3 years that's happened. I want to thank this tournament, reminding me why I love college basketball. So
I agree.
say, unless you have an opportunity at a perfect bracket and winning like $1 billion, like that one year when Warren Buffett put $1 billion on the line, who cares about your bracket?
Yeah.
March Madness is wonderful.
And
It's
the chance
almost
of
like
having a
Christmas.
the chance of you having a perfect bracket it's not going to happen. Let's just
Not
call
gonna-
it. So I kind of want to go on a different side of this. I do agree with you. I do think that I'd rather have the parity of March Madness over a perfect bracket or a good bracket. Obviously, the perfect bracket's not going to happen. As you all know, I play a lot of poker. I do some gambling, whatever. I know some guys that I play poker with that do brackets, and they throw $1,000 in there each. And so you're talking $15,000, $20,000 in this pool. If
Wow.
there's money involved, I'm rooting for my bracket. Like that's just if I have that kind of money thrown into something, I'm rooting for my bracket.
Yeah,
I
100%.
don't ever throw money on that kind of stuff. I think maybe I have, but it's like $20. It's whatever. So, give me the parody of March Madness. Give me the Cinderella stories. Give me the FAUs, the George Masons. Give me all that because, like you said, that's what makes college basketball, which I think we can all sort of agree at least before this tournament, is kind of a dying thing. Like it's
Yeah.
just not what it used to be. And I mean, having a good bracket, it's exhilarating, whatever. You can root for the teams that you picked, but nothing is better than a Cinderella story. And that's what makes March Madness different. That's what makes it great. And there's no sport out there that can compare to it.
I want to touch on a few of those points. Coming with a bracket, I've actually made 6 brackets this year. I only showed one of them to you guys. The analytics person in me, I love numbers. It's what I love to look at. I made 6 different brackets that follow 6 different analytic stats, like following points per game, following one of them was defensive rebounds, offensive rebounds per game, like weird stuff like that, and just seeing how that progresses through the tournament. I just like to see that stupid stuff. And ESPN put out a similar opponent's percentage games won like percentage on there. So like against similar opponents, and I ran a whole bracket through like that just to see what would happen. It's at like 75% accurate. I just want to. It's pretty crazy. Like you see a team once and you can play against it again another way. It's just it doesn't matter who it is. It's similar offense, similar size bodies. You're gonna play the same way against either way. It doesn't matter who the names are, what the color of the jersey is. It's basketball. You can play it. Anybody can win any game.
Right.
And the parody I want to talk on, I think it creates better storylines. I feel like ESPN, like all the sports networks, they love it. Think of the filler they can come up with between games, between everything. Run these stories like, oh, look at this guy from FAU. He came from a rundown high school with low budget, and he couldn't get any offers, and he's here playing his way to the final. They eat that stuff up.
It's also to go to your point. Sorry to interrupt. Same thing to your point is like the coaches, right? Like you talk about one of the first ever Cinderella stories was George Mason. You know who the coach was? Jim Larinaga. He's coaching Miami right now in this Final Four. If it wasn't for his run with George Mason back in, God, what was it, like 2007 or something? It was a long time ago. Would he have a big name job? No. It's opportunity for coaches and players. Steph Curry's another example of that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. David, yeah, that's it kind of shows that anybody can play you can come out of anywhere, and right now I'm realizing there's talent spread out so wide in college basketball. Like these last few years you can kind of seen it spread out. Like before, like I'd say when I was in high school, like 2014, those years they were like the Wisconsin team that came up. That was one of the first like Big Ten teams that was like, oh yeah, like I love this. It's not Ohio State and it's not this, and we're making a run. I love this. This is awesome. But Kentucky was amazing that year. They were undefeated until Wisconsin knocked them off.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that right now.
I was also a big Kentucky guy in high school, so it's fine. I literally wore a combination of both. It was disgusting.
That one hurt more than you know, man. I was huge into college basketball then. That one hurt.
That I watched that one on a massive screen with a separation of Kentucky and Wisconsin fans, and it was an amazing time actually.
It was a really good game. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, amazing game. But back then you only had the blue bloods. That was when they would always talk about the stat. No 16 seed has ever knocked off a 1. This is never going to happen ever. And no, now you see it all the time. We're spread out between that 64. Even if you're watching NIT basketball right now, NIT is good. The NIT tournament's been fabulous. Like right now, you're looking at a bunch of blue bloods playing in the NIT that are over here kicking each other in the butt.
But they've been getting knocked out. The blue bloods have. I mean, you talk about the NIT. Isn't like North Texas still in it? And it's like in the last 4 or something. I mean,
I just want to bring up the only Big Ten team still playing basketball right now is the Wisconsin Badgers in the NIT tournament.
I'll tell you who it's not. Purdue. But we'll get to that.
It's not Purdue.
No. Well, that's a pretty good segue. We did break the news live on the podcast last week of Purdue losing to Fairleigh Dickinson. And the crazy thing about Fairleigh Dickinson is the fact that it's supposed to be in the tournament.
Yeah.
They didn't even win their conference. Won their conference. And for some reason, the NCAA has this stupid rule that when you transition from being a D2 school to a D1 school, you have to go on this 4-year transition period before you are like fully D1, you can make the tournament. This is Merrimack's 4th year in that transition period. So Fairleigh Dickinson wasn't even supposed to be in the tournament. They were ranked out of the 68 teams, they were ranked 68th. The
Yeah.
worst team in the field, despite the fact that their first 4 opponent was Texas Southern, a 14-20 record. That's the beauty of this sport, man.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't know. This team who isn't even, they lost by a point to Merrimack in their conference championship. They're not even supposed to be there, but because of some weird, stupid technicality, which generally I would say is really dumb, we benefited from that. So that's an awesome storyline, and it was, and FDU gave Florida Atlantic a battle.
And you see what Florida Atlantic's doing now. Like, I mean, that's Florida Atlantic's the real deal. We'll get to that again. I think the cool thing about that whole thing, the whole FDU story is, their coach calling it. Like he said in the locker room, I've been watching Purdue's film, and I see no reason why we can't beat Purdue. We're going to go out there and we're going to beat Purdue.
That was awesome.
And they did. And then a week later, he gets the job at, was it Iona?
Iona.
Where he got the
Pitino's job.
Which, good for him. Again, another thing where March Madness, when you have 68 teams in a field, it can bring out no-name people and bring them to the next level and give them, I mean, every single player that goes in there is thinking, man, if I catch fire, I could be the next Steph Curry. All I need is a chance. March Madness is that chance. That coach at FDU, I guarantee you, he probably thought his guys could beat Purdue, but he didn't believe it the way he was talking it. But he knew if I talk like that and my guys went out there and beat him, he's the head
He's going to look like a genius, yeah.
He's going to look like a freaking genius. He's going to look like a great head coach, and I'm sure he is. But I think that was an awesome story. Do you all think that this Purdue team is the most overrated team of all time?
Oh, absolutely.
I want to talk on that. Just literally, I'm not talking good about FDU. All my notes are negativities about Purdue, about how they're overrated. They played like crap all year long against teams. They took this Wisconsin team that couldn't make the tournament, and Wisconsin only lost by 1 point. And Wisconsin should have won that game. That was right before the tourney. That was in the Big Ten tourney. And you have to think, like, this team has been playing trash all year long, getting taken to the wire by all these bad Big Ten teams. Like, they're not good. They weren't good. They haven't had a good offense all year long. And you knew they were going to stumble into an opponent. All somebody had to do was come in with the confidence to make shots. And game over. Look what happened.
And all they really had was that giant guy. I can't think of his name.
Zach Edey.
Yeah, Zach Edey. And he's not that talented. He's just huge.
No.
I'm sorry. It is what it is. Like, yeah.
This I put in my notes too. This Purdue team, just kind of keeping up with it throughout the season reminds me a lot of that Florida State team that like limped their way into the playoffs that one year and just got dominated by Oregon.
Yeah.
They had won the national championship the year before, so at least they had that going for them. But like they won just so many close games that they shouldn't have won against teams that weren't very good. Limp their way into the playoffs and just get smacked. And I think that was the year that they lost to Marcus Mariota, current Eagle, and then they lost to Ezekiel Elliott. So that's what it's very similar. I agree. I think that Purdue is overrated. Austin's not going to like this. The Big Ten, overrated. I don't care how many teams made the tournament. They're
see how they're doing.
Make the tournament all you want, but we saw your best team lost to Fairleigh Dickinson.
Yeah.
So, and the ACC has in the Final Four.
Just wait till this Wisconsin National Football Championship this next year. It's going to be great.
That's not going to happen.
It's happening. We're brewing. We're brewing. Luke Fickle is cooking. He's sitting there with a pot. He's cooking.
Forget the whole 6-pack bet. I will bet you a whole brewery they don't win it all this year.
At least go make the playoffs. I swear. I promise it. All right.
Listen, I'm not saying whenever the playoffs are expanded that Luke Fickle's not going to get them there because he was able to get Cincinnati into the 4-team playoff. Luke Fickle's a great coach, and I think Ohio State should have made him their man years ago.
Yeah.
But
because
I
Ryan
don't
Day.
think this year's going to happen. But I'm just talking basketball here, and we also saw the Big Ten.
You're coming from my neck. I gotta protect my boys.
I understand. So yeah, Purdue overrated. FDU, good for you. Glad to see that happen. Funny thing is, me and Jordan played a career. I think we were in like 10th grade. We made ourselves on Fairleigh Dickinson.
Like NCAA 08, maybe.
It was like the game with Kevin Love on it.
Yeah.
We made ourselves on Fairleigh Dickinson because we literally found the most random god awful team we could find and put ourselves on it. And now they made some noise in the tournament. But while we're speaking of teams losing to double-digit seeds, why not the original? Not to be outdone. That would be the Virginia Cavaliers, possibly the most boring basketball team in college basketball. They lose to a double-digit seed yet again. Let me give you all their rundown of their tournament history just in the past recent years. 2023, they lose to Furman. 22, they lose to St. Bonaventure in the NIT. 2021, they lose to Ohio. 2020, no tournament, COVID. 2019, they win a national championship.
Hold on, this is something I wanted to touch on real quick. They shouldn't have even won that national title. That was Texas Tech's to win. Let's just call it what it is. I think the reffing in the game was one of the worst ref games I've ever seen. Texas Tech should have won that.
They should have lost to Purdue earlier in the tournament. Yeah. They got a gift. So but then, of course, 2018, UMBC, the first 16 seed to beat a
and they didn't just lose.
They lost smacked.
They lost like 25.
Murdered.
Yeah. I think Virginia, like you're mentioning right here, is clearly the biggest choke job in all of college basketball. Just as a university, they're the biggest choke job. I wish they wouldn't have won that national title. I wish it would have been Texas Tech. It probably should have been Texas Tech, or like you said, maybe Purdue. I don't have anything against Virginia. I just watch them, and you're right, they're boring and they're not very good. I think when they won the title in 2019, there was nobody that was really good. And so they probably benefited from that. But every time you see them, and you're filling out your March Madness bracket, you see number 4 Virginia versus number 13 Charleston. Take Charleston. Yeah, take Charleston.
See, that was the same year. There was a good team in that. There was a couple, actually. The year they won the national championship, that was like the Kobe White Carolina team, but they lost to that Auburn team.
Mm-hmm.
Then that was the same year that Zion and all of them were at Duke, and they got beat by Tom Izzo and his boys. So when those teams got knocked out, it was Virginia's for the taking.
They benefited, yeah.
That was Virginia an amazing ending, though, in that game. I just wanted to throw in the ending of that game was pretty awesome.
Wasn't it like a missed free throw and they hit like a buzzer beater or something that happened?
Yeah, he tried to throw it in. It got intercepted. It literally was like just a weird limp throw across.
Yeah, like it was pretty wild. I watched that one live, and Furman, Virginia.
Oh, okay. I was thinking about their national championship.
That was an insane game. Yeah, I literally was driving home from work. I had that game on, and was driving home from work, and didn't have anything. Like I was just listening to the radio, and I get a text from in the group text from you all, and then a group text from the coaches that I coach with, and they were just like, "What a brutal way to lose." And I couldn't think of a better person for it to be than that little douchebag that's been at Virginia for like 714 years. So good for Furman. They are, of course, coming out of ETSU's conference, but Tony Bennett, I know he's a Wisconsin guy.
I have some points about this man, so go off and then let me go.
I was just going to say, I know that you say that that's every Wisconsin high school basketball's offense, and that's all well and good, but this isn't Wisconsin high school basketball. Watching them play basketball literally makes me want to like jump into the nearest lake.
I'm now saying you're blaming Jordan. You blamed an entire college. You blamed an entire university's athletic department. It goes down to one man. It's Tony Bennett. It literally is Tony Bennett's fault. Like he is the worst at what he does. His success and his whole thing is the worst thing that's ever happened to Wisconsin high school basketball. It is the worst thing that's ever happened to anything. Every kid hates the swing offense that he created. Oh my God. I hated learning it. It's slow. It's boring. It doesn't work. It's inefficient. It just wastes so much time. You leave yourself open to that. If it takes us 3 minutes to develop a scoring possession and they just go down the court and just score, what are we doing? Like, we now have to go down there and we have to, all right, swing it here. 3 comes through. Send the screen around. All right, here we go. Now we kick it this way. Now we have one open shot. We missed. They go down, they score. We take 3 more minutes. Oh my God. Just the worst possible thing. Every better ever. You see Virginia on the card, bet the under. It's useless. He's never going to score. Never makes a scoring offense. I know he went to the high school that was right across the street from where I grew up. I don't care. Tony Bennett's a loser. I played with this kid. He has an indoor pool in Green Bay. It was very nice, but he's still a loser, and I don't care. Done. My piece.
There it is. Wow. Drew, anything to add to that, or you just want to let that simmer for a bit?
I think we should just let that simmer.
Okay. Okay, so the next point, Princeton over Virginia. And the funny thing about Arizona, that's what I meant. I'm still thinking about Virginia being garbage. Princeton over Arizona. Now, Arizona was in my Final Four along with Purdue, which was a stupid prediction. So my bracket was screwed as soon as it started. Arizona was a pretty popular pick, and it's funny because I feel like we kind of willed this into existence in Mascotology because we had 2 debates, and the debates were smart bulldog or a regular bulldog, and then tiger with a chip on its shoulder or a preppy tiger. Well, we found out that the Ivy League mascot you need to worry about is a smart tiger. Princeton looked dangerous, man. I mean, and they
really did.
took Creighton to the wire, and they were surprisingly good. Even watching them play against Creighton, some of the athleticism that they had on that team is not something that you would generally associate with an Ivy League school like Princeton. But they were a lot of fun to watch, and it turns out we were worrying about the wrong Ivy League school.
Yeah, I think, so Arizona was one of my favorites to take it all. It actually kind of hurt me to have them lose. I just couldn't get away from Kansas, which we all know how that ended. But this is actually just Princeton's second win, I guess second and third win in the NCAA tournament. But the one thing that I want to point out, it feels like it happens every year, is when you have an Ivy League school in the tournament, which happens every year, obviously, it's hard not to pick them because I feel like every time there's an upset, it involves an Ivy League school. So I'm not super surprised. I'm just kind of shocked watching that game because Arizona looked lethargic and they looked just out of it, like they didn't care. But all season, I thought they had one of the most talented rosters in all of college basketball. And Princeton whipped them around. They ended up going to the Sweet 16, so good for them. But yeah, I think the big thing to take out of that is never count an Ivy League school out in the NCAA tournament. You're going through your bracket. You see Princeton, you see Dartmouth, you see Yale, whatever. Don't just skip over it because these teams feel like they have something to prove, right? Like they're always studying, doing all this stuff as they should be. Well, they get to go have some fun, do what they like to do, and they're just out there having a good time. And I mean, when you're having fun playing basketball, anything could happen.
And just to go off that point, I was just doing a little research, doing my notes this week, and I noticed, I believe it was Miami, played another Ivy League school in Cornell, beat them like 102 to 101 or 102 to 100 or something like that. So you just don't know, man. You just don't know. It's unpredictable. All they have to do is be smarter than you, and they're pretty good at that. So you just can't count them out.
Hey, again, like normal here, me and Jordan have very similar notes, and it's just like you see Ivy League schools. What do you always see from them? And it's good fundamental basketball. And it's you can have talent, but if your talent doesn't show up, fundamentals will kick you in the butt all day long. And that's what I have. I'm like, Ivy League schools, when they come out with these fundamentals and a team comes out sluggish, tee off. They tee off. They're going to go get you. And it's a bunch of smart guys. You can't put them down. They just have, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but fundamentals can just kick you in the butt.
And these kids have learned from their childhood, like discipline. So they're listening to the coaches. They run everything down to a T. I mean, like you said, it's just all fundamental. It's very well run. And I swear, if you look at the stats of these Ivy League schools, turnovers are low, assists are high. They move the ball well. All these things, like you said, it's fundamentally good basketball. And then a lot of teams like Arizona or even teams in the SEC, ACC, they're not used to that. They're used to the athleticism, the one-on-ones, the big names, the ones that you're going to see in the NBA. Team basketball still wins, baby. It still wins.
It's crazy. I literally have fundamentals versus high-flying b-ball, and you take fundamentals every time. I swear, we share notes every week.
It's funny because, we started the show off with you two fighting each other. I guess we're just going to have to wait for football season to start back up for y'all to
fight some more.
Football season.
It'll be more than enough for them. But I think also something that you have to think about that I didn't even write down that I just kind of thought about here. You have to think with these Ivy League schools that they're very prestigious and they have high expectations. So you got to think they're not hiring just some bum to be their coach. They
Yeah,
got to have somebody
because
who
they got to
has a
represent.
pedigree, who is highly intelligent, who will represent their university the way that they want it represented. And I think that, as somebody who has coached not at that level, but coaching is way more important than people give it credit for, than just the random viewer who just watches these games and sees people making all these shots and blames it on bad plays and things like that. The coaching aspect that goes into it is obviously very important, and when you have an Ivy League coach, chances are they're pretty dang smart.
Especially in college sports. Like if you go to
Mhm.
professional sports, you could say coaching, especially basketball. I mean, I guess you go to football and say whatever, but college basketball is like the epitome of you need a good coach because
Yep.
there's just a lot of discipline that goes into it. So, what are you saying, Austin?
Did you guys know that Ryan Fitzpatrick went to Harvard?
Yeah, I've heard that about 100 times.
Yep.
So
I'm sick of hearing that. I'm sick of hearing about it. It's just
yeah. So as a Tennessee football fan who is a North Carolina basketball fan, seeing Tennessee beat Duke was very, very satisfying. It also happened to be that I was at the beach when that happened, so it was just kind of the best of both worlds. I was sitting on the beach and got an alert that they had won. I didn't even watch the second half of that game because Tennessee's offense is just
They did win. They dominated from
They
the
did.
tip. They dominated
did.
from the tip. Continue.
And the funny thing about that is after that game, Jay Billis, who I've come to actually like okay for being a Dookie, he just was so salty after the game and starts this narrative that Tennessee is a dirty team, basically because they bullied Kyle Filipowski, who's just a big soft baby. He is the perfect Duke player, the perfect Duke villain, this big lanky white guy who then wants to go on Twitter and fire shots at Tennessee after they lose to FAU. And Tennessee just played hard that game.
Yeah.
They just played harder. They wanted it more. They didn't feel like it was owed to them as much. I feel like Duke has that we're Duke, bow down to us type deal. So I thought that was kind of BS. But then Euros Plavsic just absolutely clotheslined Vlad Golden in the Sweet 16. And I was just like, well, buddy, you're not really helping that reputation by doing that. So kind of anybody that defended them kind of looked silly after that. But I thought that the whole Tennessee is dirty thing was stupid after the Duke game. And then it was disappointing to see that happen in that game.
Well,
Yeah.
here's the thing. Okay, so the first thing I want to touch on, because I'm not a Tennessee fan, I'm a Tennessee hater. I hate everything about Tennessee. I don't think they're a dirty team. Number one reason is their head coach is Rick Barnes. Rick Barnes is known as the good guy of college basketball. He's a good Christian man. He's a good dude, right? Like, so I don't think he's going to be coaching a dirty team. But then you go on the how do you pronounce that? Plavsic? Okay. So it was against Florida Atlantic. It wasn't against Duke. So if you're given the narrative that they were a dirty team against Duke, I don't think that's completely fair because that happened afterwards. Was it a dirty play? Hell yeah, it was. I mean, it definitely was. But I don't think that makes them a dirty team. Number one, it's one player. Number two, I've been frustrated in basketball and I've done something that's very stupid. I mean, that
punched
happened.
the wall and broke your hand.
That happened. And so I think that, when you can't put that all on one team and just say they're being a dirty team. No, they were just hustling. And maybe some of the calls didn't go Duke's ways and they were frustrated about it, whatever. But I think at the end of the day, you have to realize they're Duke. They get the calls 99% of the time. They're Duke. So one game you don't get calls and all of a sudden you want to say that some other team is a dirty team. Man, you lost. I don't care about the free throws. Good, you got your asses kicked. I'm just calling what it is. I mean, I don't like Duke. I don't like Tennessee, but I see it as an outsider's perspective. It's not a dirty team. It wasn't a dirty game, and I think the reffing was fine. I just think Duke players, Duke fans, whatever, were being whiny about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm basically agreeing again with Jordan. This is a heavily agreeing with him episode. I really hope that my future point that I have here that I really want to bet on him with is going to come to fruition. But they were not playing dirty. That is how you handle a big guy down low.
Yeah.
You get physical. You make him fight for every point. You make him regret wanting to go into the paint. That is the point of what you have to do to those big guys. You make them not want to go down there. Every time I go down there, I'm getting bodied by this guy. My ribs are hurting. I'm getting beat up. I don't want to play like that down low. That's not dirty. That's just called basketball. That's just what happens when you're a big guy. Hey, it sucks. That's what's gonna happen to you. And I don't count that as dirty. It's what can you say about it? It's just basketball. Like that's just the way it is. And the clothesline was a dirty play, but that's after the fact, and that happens at every team. Every team has people that do stuff out of anger. It's the tournament. This is what happens during it. You're stressed out. You're in this once in a lifetime situation to move on. You're against a team that you should be beating, but you're not. What are you gonna do? You're gonna act out. It's just doesn't fit. It fits the narrative that people want to push, but originally that's just how you handle a big guy.
Andrew, you want to speak on Tennessee, whether it be
Yeah.
Duke or the disappointing loss to FAU?
Well, I mean, I thought the whole dirty Tennessee players, I thought that was complete crap. I mean, if you look at Duke, they have some of the biggest known, dirtiest players in the game. I mean, you have Grayson Allen, you have Christian Laettner, you have a number of players that are known for being dirty, and just I think it's complete crap. I mean, their mascot's the Blue Devils, their coach is the actual devil.
Not anymore, but he was.
John Shire.
He got buried by these guys, but yeah, John Shire's just as bad. He's just a crony of Satan.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was complete crap, but you know.
And what about the FAU game? How'd you feel about that?
I mean, I missed that game. It's disappointing, but I missed that one, unfortunately. So I kind of felt like it was maybe if I had watched it, we might have pulled it out. But who knows? Maybe they're the team of destiny. I don't know. But
well, let me just. I missed it too, and this will kind of segue into our next point about FAU. Are they the team of destiny? Because this team was 35-3. Like they're really, really good. Are they the team of destiny, or were they just underrated and underseeded? I think
could have been as well. Yeah.
I think the argument's there to be had. I don't think that they're like this amazing Cinderella story. I think everybody's just kind of sleeping on them. Like they lost 3 games this season. I don't care who you play. Basketball is a sport where anything can happen. You lose 3 games in a season. I just don't know. I mean, like, and then you talk about them versus Tennessee. Yeah, Tennessee probably has the better known names and everything, but like, I think it's a lot more even matchup. I think if they play 10 times, it's 5-5. Like, I don't think that Tennessee should have been a super heavy favorite when I actually watch FAU play and I look at their stats, I look at their record. So I just think it was kind of a misservice on them to be a 9 seed because I think that they're much better than that. It's unfortunate for Tennessee because they had to run into them. But, when you get a team that's 35-3, they have a chip on their shoulder because they're the 9 seed and they take on Tennessee. I mean, I just think it was a bad matchup for UT.
And also, with Tennessee losing Zakai Ziegler earlier in the season, he's their quarterback of the team. He's their point guard. Also an excellent defender. When you don't have a guy like that against a team who's got great ball movement and they find space and they use the space well and they're good in transition, you run into a buzzsaw. And sometimes that just happens. FAU is an unbelievably impressive team. Me personally, I just keep counting them out and thinking, okay, they're going to lose this next time. Okay, but they just continue to win and silence the doubters such as myself. So it's been an impressive run, and I'd say that their coach is probably not going to be the coach at FAU for much longer.
Absolutely not. There's no shot. But
way.
All right. Now, this is where I finally get to have an opposite opinion of Jordan and James and Andrew. This is Brock Purdy level hype. This is unwarranted level hype here. You win a few games in a tournament, you move on. It's a win or go home situation. You can get in and out. Anybody can win a basketball game. Some of the teams they play during their year: North Texas, UAB, Charlotte, Rice, Western Kentucky, FIU, LA Tech, UTEP, UTSA. We have games going up against Detroit Mercy, Lynn College, Bryant University, St. Thomas, Florida of the Christian Academies. We're playing teams. Yeah, I could win a team game against the Bryan College. That sounds. I don't even know who they are. You have 33 wins against teams that are no names.
I mean, I I understand that, but they just beat Kansas State. All right, they just beat Kansas State. Before that, they beat Tennessee. Tennessee at the start of the season was top 5. Like they were no. So I'm not talking about like what they did during the regular season because I think what they did during, no matter what, 35 wins in a regular season or 33, whatever it was in the regular season, is impressive. Period. I don't care who you play. It's hard to do. It's hard to do. You match up one of the Blue Bloods against those teams, they're still going to lose a couple. So it's still impressive. What's impressive to me is the fact that they keep playing these close games in the NCAA tournament under all the pressure in the world against teams they're supposed to lose to, right? They were supposed to get their asses kicked by Tennessee. Everybody thought they would. They said no. They won that game with physicality, good coaching, ball movement, and great defense. Kansas State, completely different ball game. Kansas State shot really well. FAU just shot better. And also, I've got a note on that game because Florida Atlantic out-rebounded the crap out of Kansas State.
Yeah.
And that it was 44-22 on rebounds. You can't tell me that if they go up against any team in college basketball, they double the rebounds in that game, that they can't win.
You know, it's hilarious because didn't allow offensive rebounds at all. Like they stumped them on that. But that's how they win those games. You win those battles, those small battles, you win those games. But the clock always strikes midnight, and that glass shoe is not going to fit.
I'm not saying it won't, but it's still a great story. But I also think that maybe they were underrated going into the tournament because people should have seen this coming.
But that's where they're my point earlier is why I'm saying they're underrated. They didn't play a team with a normal Lynn, Ole Miss, Florida, real team, Bryant, Detroit Mercy, Albany, South Alabama, Eastern Michigan, FGCU, and that logo. I swear to God, that's just a pick art off of Microsoft Word. St. Thomas, Florida, FIU, Northern Kentucky.
Was that Dunk City?
Florida Gulf Coast. They were fun to watch.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm pretty sure that's just off of it's off of Microsoft PowerPoint. They pulled up one of those pick arts and they put it up there. That's their logo. But I have in all caps here. Please have Jordan have the opposite opinion because I want to bet on SDSU against him. So this is my offer to you. Double or nothing, sir. I will bet on San Diego State University against this Cinderella story. The glass slipper ain't fitting anymore, bud.
I haven't talked about San Diego State, so you don't know how I feel about them. We'll get to that when we get to
you're hype on FAU right here.
No, I'm just saying. All I'm saying is I'm not surprised that they made the run that they did after looking at.
You think both teams are going to lose?
No,
We're not there yet. We're not there yet.
We're not ahead of yourself. All I'm saying is I'm not surprised. I think that because when we were talking about this, are they like the darling of this tournament? I just think that they were underseeded and underrated, and them getting here shouldn't be as big of a surprise as it is.
You can't give a seeding to a team that hasn't played anybody.
I understand that, but I'm just saying that you can't it's not surprising to me that they're there because they're well coached. You can only play the teams that are on your schedule. And
that's true. I'm not saying that's wrong. Yeah, no.
I'm not sitting here trying to say that FAU is going to beat San Diego State. We'll get to that. But all I'm saying is every team that they play, they compete with. And that's because they're very well coached. They work hard. They hustle. They have one of the best big men in the tournament right now. Honestly.
I hate him.
I know, but you can't deny it. And it's just when you have that and you out-rebound a team 44-22, you're giving yourself a chance to win every single game. They hit their free throws. They're very clutch. It's just I'm just not surprised. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that I'm overly impressed. I think they're going to win it all. No. I'm just saying I'm not that surprised. I don't think it was a huge upset that they beat Tennessee. Don't think it was a huge upset that they beat Kansas State. I think they were evenly matched with both of them. That's all I'm saying.
Also, I don't think that Vlad Golden's one of the. He's definitely not the best big man because that's the.
That's the guy from UConn.
Yeah. But when we talked about it yesterday, he doesn't impress me as a basketball player. He's just big. He's so awkward. He looks like Christian that we used to play basketball with at that church. He's just lanky and big and awkward, and
he does
he's
fit
just
into the system. He does fit into the system.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, he fits the system, but do win and they face UConn, I think he's going to get doo-dooed on by that huge guy.
Dude, he doesn't have any muscle mass. That guy's going to push him around. Yeah, I agree.
And also, I just don't like him. His face annoys me. He's Russian, and he just has this attitude about him that gets on my nerves. But let's go to our last point here before we take our first break.
Sure.
Marquise Noel, man. I mean, he was the star of the tournament until they were eliminated. Just absolutely phenomenal player. Kind of fell in love with him watching him play against Kentucky just because of the passes he was making.
I don't
Just
disagree.
making plays out of nothing. His motto, heart over height. I mean, he's 5'8", but then in his pregame thing before the FAU game, he said, "I'm 5'8" on a good day and a good pair of shoes." So we're talking about a guy who is far smaller than any of us, who's going out there and in the NCAA tournament averaged 23.5 points, 13.5 assists, and 4 steals.
Set the NCAA record for most assists in a game against
Yeah,
Michigan
had
State. at
20
19.
and 19 against Michigan State. I mean, awesome story. Really fun to watch. So the Keontae Johnson story. His past was Florida, and he collapsed on the court. Didn't play for a couple of years. The NCAA literally offered him $5 million of their insurance policy, or he could bet on himself, and he did. And
Yeah, he turned it
really
down.
showed up. I was kind of rooting for Kansas State, but
Yeah.
That was me as well. I started following this team after I saw that story. It was here recently in the tournament, but after hearing that he turned down $5 million to bet on himself to play again and see what he could do. I mean, if that's me, I'm probably taking the $5 million. You know what I mean? That's hard to do, and that was crazy to me. So I really enjoyed watching these guys play after I heard that. So
Yeah, and I think
the fact that he almost died and was in a coma for 3 days, and he was like, "Nah, ball is life."
yeah.
So what you're talking about is Marquise Noel being the story of the tournament until they got eliminated. I disagree because I think it's Keontae Johnson. I just think that whole story is phenomenal. Marquise Noel is a fantastic story because he's just like you said, he's a little guy. He's out here shooting from the logo, right, and drilling them. And I mean, he's a great player. He's a hustler. It is what it is. But the story's Keontae Johnson. The dude almost died on a basketball court. Next thing you know, he makes it to the Elite Eight. He transfers teams. He's gonna get a chance in the NBA, and he should. He's got the size. He's got the agility. He's got the athleticism. He's a baller, man. And his heart, I mean, he wears it on his sleeve right there. He almost died on the basketball court in 2020. Next thing you know, he's in the NCAA tournament playing with a different team. I love it. I think he's the story of the tournament just because of the fact that he literally almost died.
Oh, I don't disagree with that. I just think that Marquise Noel was the star. He was the face.
Oh yeah,
of
I mean, I can't disagree with that. Yeah.
So
Johnson, it was literally that story is insane, and you just can't argue against that. Also, Marquise Noel, Jimmer Fredette did it better. Jimmer Fredette, do you remember in 2013, 2012, man? Oh, you were in any court, Jimmer. You were just tucking up things from half court. It was nasty.
But that's first of all, me and Jordan are very on record as hating Jimmer Fredette when he was at BYU.
Oh, I'm a Jimmer Fredette fan, and he never turned out.
Yeah, great NBA player. The thing about Marquise Noel that impressed me wasn't even the fact that he's pulling from the logo. I mean, that was cool too. It was just the ridiculous
His vision, bro. His vision's
dishes,
insane.
man. That just dropping apples left and right. Call him Johnny Appleseed. He'd drive in between the trees.
Did you see in their Elite Eight matchup? He's walking across half court and he's looking at his coach over here. No look from almost half court, alley-oop to Keontae Johnson.
Yeah,
that was
unbelievable.
The fake argument.
Staring at his coach, and the whole defense is just chill. I was like,
in overtime as well with a minute left.
I'm like, dude,
all the pressure in the world, and he comes out and does that, dude. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, so if you say star of the tournament, because I do. I mean, I still go back to those tournaments when Jimmer was, and those are I always think about Jimmer when it comes to those tournaments. Just like whenever Butler made those runs, I always think of Gordon Hayward. It is what it is. But if you go back and think about this tournament, I think it's going to be Marquise Noel. Just he made so many big plays like that I think he's going to be the guy that you think of first.
No, you say that you kind of do think about that. There's always one player.
Yep.
You have the John Wall years. You have the
Anthony Davis.
Greg
Anthony
Oden.
Davis
Why is
years.
that one?
Greg Oden from he lost to Kentucky. Tyler Hansbrough. Yeah.
There's just so many random players that make you think of a whole tournament, a whole tournament summed up in one player.
I mean, there's just a lot of them.
Curry.
But if you're talking about, yes, that's what I was about to say. If you're talking about somebody who's on a team that everybody's counting out, Steph Curry, man. Dude,
Yep.
I remember sitting in the gaming chair that sat in your floor in your mom's house watching Steph Curry just when they were calling him the baby-faced assassin. And we were very large fans of Steph Curry at that point in time.
And the
And
thing was, the jersey he was wearing, the Davidson jersey, it just looked like he didn't belong, man. That thing was hanging
too
down
big.
his knees.
It's
Yeah.
way too big.
But
And
he was
North Carolina had played Davidson earlier in that year, and I was like, "Who the heck is this baby-faced guy who's just murdering us?" And of course, North Carolina ended up winning that game. But I was like, "This cat is something else."
Yep.
No idea.
Mhm.
We had no idea what was in store, and now Andrew's in love with him.
The second greatest shooter of all time, and you watched it like
Just
in college.
stop, dude. You're wrong. All right, just get off of here. Membership revoked. Just leave.
Austin's greatest shooter of all time, School, is still in the tournament, but we'll get to that on the other half of our break. So we'll take a break here, and we'll be back to break down the rest of the Final Four teams. All right, welcome back, and we want to take this opportunity to welcome our newest addition to the A2J2 family, and that would be one Miss Willow Curtis.
Little Pepper.
Look how adorable.
She was just sleeping, and now she's like, "Bruh, I'm not ready
Why
for
am
my
I
toast
awake?
just yet."
Oh, she's still about to pass out.
Yeah,
Oh, she's doing all right.
I'm not gonna go back to
Just
sleep.
the rest of the pot on my lap sleeping.
Some solid puppy content for our watchers. You all deserve it. So let's get into our next point. The next team I want to talk about in the Final Four is the UConn Huskies. Probably the most impressive team. I mean, definitely
Absolutely.
the most impressive team.
Not even close. I mean,
They haven't been challenged. Their closest game was 15 points against St. Mary's, and they're beating their opponents by an average of 22.5 points per game. They absolutely dominated Gonzaga, which was really fun to watch because I hate Drew Timme.
he's been there for 27 years. So
And he has another year of eligibility, and I hope he doesn't come back. But I think that, UConn, very impressive. Definitely the best team in the tournament thus far. And also, Gonzaga still is not tested in their regular season because they play in a fake conference. So
yeah. So I wanted to kind of touch on, they beat Iona by 24, beat St. Mary's by 15, beat Arkansas by 23, beat Gonzaga by 28. So you kind of brought it on the outline that they haven't been challenged. And I think it really depends on what you mean by that. Because they have been challenged in the fact of who they're playing. So you talk about Gonzaga, they're a perennial NCAA deep runner. They're always deep into the tournament, Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four, Finals, whatever. Yeah, they choke. It is what it is, but I mean, UConn dismantled them. Then you talk about Arkansas. Arkansas
crazy.
beat the reigning champ Kansas. Kansas, they didn't have their head coach. They didn't have Bill Self. So maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But every NCAA team, every NCAA game in the tournament is a challenge. You can ask Virginia, you can ask Kentucky, teams who have been choking here lately. But the one thing about UConn is like they don't have an off game. They just don't. It just doesn't matter who they play, how they win the game. I mean, we saw against Gonzaga, they were hitting shots like it was stupid.
Yeah.
But kind of what you were saying, Austin, is when everything looks really good about a team, it normally hits a wall. And that concerns me about UConn. I think that they're the most complete team in the NCAA tournament. But this tournament's different. It's brought a bunch of parity and stuff. I wouldn't be surprised to see Miami really, really give them a challenge. UConn is the most complete team. If I were to throw money down on who's going to win it all, real money, I would have to go UConn. But I'm not sold yet.
I think their biggest weakness is they haven't gone up against good defense.
Yeah.
And that's where I could see them struggling. They are a fully well-rounded team, and they have a great big man. They are very, very well-rounded on offense, but they don't play anybody with a solid defense. Now, a solid defense, I'm talking about like, somebody they might be matching up against, the U, where they are a great defensive rebounding team, and we saw it at a little prelude at the end of the Texas game. But I think that's where they're going to fall short, is if they can't get their rebounds and they can't play against a good defense, they're going to get knocked out. It's just a matter of this parity of this tournament. Exactly how you're saying. This tournament is, you're seeing anybody come out and beat anybody on any given day. It's just you have to play the basketball. but I think they struggle. Well, we actually don't know because we haven't seen it, but I think they might struggle against a good defense.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with that. I think it all comes down to because we've seen UConn in this tournament really have like a high field goal percentage. If they're shooting well, they're unbeatable. I mean, it is what it is.
Mhm.
If they're hitting shots, they can't be beat. But if you do throw Miami's good defense, they play very aggressive, up in your face, don't mind doing a full court press. They hustle like crazy, and UConn is hitting maybe an average day of shooting. They can be beat. I think you're absolutely right.
Andrew.
Yeah, like Jordan said, if I had to put money on it, I've got UConn going all the way. I mean, at this point, the teams they've looked the best overall. The fact that they're beating every team except for St. Mary's by 20, and they still beat St. Mary by 15. I mean, I call it untested. Call it they've got something in the water over there. I don't know, but it's impressive to say the least. I mean, they're dominating. They held Gonzaga to what 54 points. I mean, that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
So I'm taking them overall. Whether they haven't been challenged or not, or their defense or what, but I've got UConn all the way at this point.
That second half, UConn and Gonzaga, I've never seen a team look better than what UConn looked in that second half.
Yeah.
I'm saying
Generally, I would turn a game like that off because I'd be
was
bored with
so
it.
entertaining though.
But it was just fun to watch them just keep burying shot after shot after shot.
Yeah.
And so I kept it on and just watched the slaughter, and it was a lot of fun to watch. It's impressive
Mhm.
basketball. And Dan Hurley, man, he's awesome. He spoke on it yesterday. They interviewed him before the games yesterday, and he said originally his dad was a high school basketball coach, and he was a high school basketball coach, and he said at that time my goal in life was just to be a high school basketball coach. I never saw something like this happening, and it's a really cool story with Dan Hurley.
Yeah.
And to see how he has that program clicking on all cylinders. And also UConn is the only team that you can consider like a blue blood that's left. They have the pedigree.
Something you said to me, James, you texted me was really funny. It's just like UConn for about 5 years, they just kind of suck. You never really hear about them. And all of a sudden, one year they just go win it all. It's like,
They're
okay,
incredible.
it's just like whatever.
Like
just
you don't think of them as a blue blood, but they've won 4 titles since '99.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
Like you can't argue against it.
They
So,
either win it all or they're terrible. I mean, it's
yeah,
just
or they just missed the
All
tournament.
or nothing.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the last 2 times that UConn's won the championship, they got hot in the Big East tournament, and I picked them both times in my bracket. I didn't this year, so maybe that'll bite them in the butt, but I don't think what I pick has that much power. But for the Milwaukee year, there was no denying them. And then you just had that feeling with like Jeremy Lamb and Shabazz Napier and all those cats.
Yeah.
But still very impressive. Look forward to seeing them go up against the U on Saturday. San Diego State, different story. They are winning close games. Their average margin of victory is 9.5 points, which you might hear that and say, well, that's not really close games, but they beat Furman by 23 points. So you're looking at an average margin of victory, 9.25 points, even though you beat a team by 23. Yeah. And I feel like that's something that you have to take into consideration when you look forward is good teams are able to blow out other teams, but great teams are able to come through in the clutch.
Keep those close ones.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the Aztecs have done. And they've been a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah. I think it's a really good story. I just wanted to touch on one thing about San Diego State. Obviously, I'm impressed. Any team that beats Alabama is good with me. So
that's what I had too. I had that in my note as well. That same line.
I think it's an awesome story for Matt Bradley, who was on their team. So last year he missed 2 game-winning free throws. They were up by 2 late in the game. It was against Creighton, same team they just played in the NCAA tournament. He missed 2 free throws that would have closed that game out. Creighton came back. They ended up winning the game. He couldn't get over it. He actually sought professional help for mental health problems after that. Then he comes back in the Elite Eight this year. They play Creighton again, and they win. And I know at the end of the game, they were all celebrating and everything. Dude was sitting on the bench with his head in his hands, crying because he went through the ringer, and that's awesome to see. And again, that's what March Madness is for these kids, and I love it. Right? Just knowing that you'd have an entire fan base on your back, and you miss 2 free throws and your team ends up losing and it's heartbreaking. You have to get professional help. That's a redemption story, man, if I've ever seen one.
Dude,
So,
I didn't know that story. That's awesome. I'm glad you said that because I didn't hear that. That's cool.
and I actually had to look before the podcast because I wasn't sure if it was him that shot the game-winning free throw at the end of that game, but it wasn't.
Dude, that would have went full circle. That would have been so cool. I mean, it still did, but
no, it's still great. Kind of
And
go on that.
he's been their leading scorer all year. So
Yeah, no,
it's not
he's
like-
been really good, really good. To kind of go on that foul was sheepish at the end. I did not like that call. It was a foul, sure, but let's not end a game at a free throw line. Let's just not do it. I don't like it.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
under- yeah,
it's
no,
like ending a Super Bowl on a defensive
that's
holding call.
Here's the deal. Let me with that. I agree, and I thought about the Super Bowl, and then I had flashbacks of the year when Kentucky won the championship with Anthony Davis, and the only team that had a chance to beat that Kentucky team was North Carolina. North Carolina played Creighton in that tournament, and I had a flashback to Doug McDermott turning and looking at the bench and just winking at the bench after Kendall Marshall broke his wrist. And they won that game and ended up losing to Kansas, who would make it to the championship and lose to Kentucky without Kendall Marshall. But I thought about that, and I was like, piss on Creighton, piss on Doug McDermott's dad. That's what they get. Take your L and go home. Go Aztecs.
Yeah. So you want to get to Miami? You want to get to the U? So I want to touch on the U real quick. So I have a soft spot in my heart for the U. I always have. I don't know why. I mean, it goes back to the early 2000s football team, right? Like just the bad boys of the U. I mean, I always root for them. Football, basketball, whatever. I can't root against them. I love them. But the thing I really want to talk about was him, Larinaga. What a coach. Jim Larinaga took George Mason to the Final Four. It was like the first big Cinderella story of my life, at least.
Yeah.
And he gets the job at Miami. He completely turns that program around. That basketball team was a joke. Miami basketball was nothing. And then him, Larinaga, comes in, takes him to the Elite Eight last year, takes him to the Final Four this year. Don't even argue with me. He's a Hall of Fame college basketball coach. There's no question about it. And I think that they've got some incredible players. Isaiah Wong, he's literally phenomenal.
ACC Player of the Year.
Yeah, Jordan Miller went 7
Didn't miss a shot yesterday.
He went 7 for 7 from the field, went 13 for 13 on free throws. What?
Wow.
He didn't miss a shot. I think he had 29 points, led the team in against Texas. And that comeback was just, I was watching that game and Texas was just dominating, but something inside of me said, like, Miami's got this. And that's why I say, when you say that FAU might be the team of destiny, I think Miami might be the team of destiny. Something just feels different about it.
Hey, I hate to bring this up. Do you know who the last player was to not miss a shot in the NCAA tournament game?
I don't.
Christian Leitner in the shot game.
No.
Gross.
I hate him.
Everybody here hates him.
They literally made a 30 for 30 called I Hate Christian Leitner because he's so hateable. And he's a garbage NBA player. But
True.
I agree with you, man. Like Miami, if you grew up in the 90s, early 2000s, and you saw those teams, we've talked about them before, all those players that they had, the guys that turned out in the NFL, you have a soft spot for them.
Yeah.
They should have won back-to-back national championships. That pass interference call against Ohio State was rough. My mom was very happy about it. But I remember my uncle had like a really old throwback retro Miami sweatshirt that I wish I could pull out for this weekend. It was like that ugly green color, and it had the ibis on it. I have no idea where it is, but I remember wearing it to conditioning at football one day, and our head coach looking at me and being like, "What in God's name are you wearing?" But like, they've always had that swagger, and I think it's just good for sports when a program like Miami is good.
Yeah.
So, like I said at the top, they're definitely the team I'm rooting for. My heart wants them to win, but we'll get to our predictions here shortly.
Yeah.
I watched that game sitting in a bar yesterday. Finally got a break from this puppy, and my mom took it, so we had a good hour to go get some food, have a little time, and brilliant defense. They're a very slow starting team. They can't get off to a hot start. It's very, very slow. But once they get rolling, shots start falling, the defense starts getting back, they start getting energy. All of a sudden, they're meeting him at half court. The press is on, but it's not on. But they're up in the guy's face. He's already got a hand in his face. He's coming through and he's trying to set up the offense. He's already got a guy bugging him. Miller not missing a shot. We're sitting there when he was at 10, and 10 shots in a row made. And I go, Nikki, you think he makes it? You want to bet? What are you betting on this? Like, you want to put $1 on this that he makes this? Like, that's how it was. He just kept hitting them, and then I was like, 12 in a row. You can't make 13. You can't make 13 drops. It's just like, it was just nuts that he was just sitting there, just crazy. It was insane. I have a lot of energy for that team. I think it was fun to watch. Texas choked that away. I can't think of the player's name. Shooting guard, Texas, big white guy.
Cunningham.
Yes, he went to the basket on a 2-on. He was 1-on-2. There's 2 guys in his way. I literally go. I'm saying to Nikki, I was like, that was such a dumb choice. She's even pointing out, if there's 2 on you, that means somebody else is. Exactly. Kick the ball out. Like, you're stupid. You're stupid. You choke that away for your own team. But we'll leave that alone. Don't want to put anything on one guy, but come on, man.
Also,
And
there was that questionable call on Cunningham where he was like blocking out and he just completely took the legs out from under Miami's post player, and that was the right call. I mean, you can't just take somebody's legs out.
Right? Yeah, it's absolutely right.
they also had a block too it was easily a block, and they were all yelling. No, you can't run and hit a guy. That's not how it works. It's not football.
To go on your point about Miami's slow starts and how they just kind of find a rhythm, how much of that can you accredit to coaching? Because I'm a huge Jim Larinaga guy. And if your team starts off slow, then all of a sudden they can pick it up. Like that, to me, is coaching. All of a sudden the defense starts clicking, the offense starts clicking, the ball movement starts clicking, the plays start working. It's coaching.
My high school coach would call it, it's a tank rolling down a mountainside. It might start slow, but all of a sudden it's just going. You're not going to stop that thing. So
I think they have a big advantage going into the Final Four in coaching, because I love Jim Larinaga. I just think that he knows how to coach a basketball team.
Yeah, and that game with Texas yesterday was so much fun to watch. I mean, Miami comes back from 13 down in the second half, but for a while in the first half, literally the under 8 timeout didn't happen until there was like 4 minutes and 23 seconds left, because the game was just boom, 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 back and forth. Shot made, just haymakers left. It was like a prized fight. And it was just so much fun to watch. It was funny for them to go on the under 8 timeout, and then like a minute later they had to go to the under 4 timeout. Just exciting basketball. And, I wasn't sure about Miami. Obviously, like I said, my heart wants them to win, but I gained some confidence in them yesterday after seeing them take down a very, very hot Texas team.
Yeah.
And in the process, they beat the 4, 1, and 2 seeds in their bracket. So very impressive.
They've gone on the hardest road you can go on through a tournament, and just came out swinging.
Honestly,
love it.
You can say over the 40 minutes in every single one of those games, they may have been underdogs. They look like the better team. It didn't feel like upset. You can't say that really about FAU. Maybe you can't say that about San Diego State. You can definitely say that about UConn. But Miami looked like a better team against Houston. They just looked like a better basketball team. So, I don't know. I mean, UConn can be fun.
Yeah, dude, that's what I was about to say. I'm glad to see that UConn and Miami are going to go against each other, and I hope they're both clicking on full cylinders. I hope it's all out. I hope they're both just playing their best basketball, and we get to see it, dude. I'm so excited for that game.
That should be the national championship. That should be.
It really should be. It really should be.
And Jordan will be here to watch it with me, and we're going to be pulling heavy for the U. So that'll bring us to our Final Four predictions. The first game, I already know where Austin's going on this one. He's already shown his hand a little bit. But like I said earlier, man, I'm done doubting FAU. I mean, I've continued to doubt them time and time again.
And this is where they fall apart.
I want San Diego State to win this game, so if I'm wrong, that's fine. But I just can't doubt them anymore. I've got FAU.
I have to go with San Diego State. It's just I didn't talk on them in that last point with them, and that was specifically because I've already kind of shown my hand. In my mind, they have a superior defense. As you said, good teams win. Good teams just win games, but great teams win those close ones. It's like great teams cover the spread. This team will will their way to a victory. I don't care how good the Cinderella is. She's got to go down the stairs and lose that slipper at some point. It's going to hit midnight, and we're going to look at an Aztec standing there wearing a dress.
Hold
So
on. I don't know if FAU is as much. I mean, FAU as a Cinderella, like San Diego State might be just as much of a Cinderella that FAU is.
that's why I said there's going to be an Aztec standing there in a dress. She's the real Cinderella.
I'm just saying. So give me
holding the heart of an
He's
owl.
a heart in one hand. He's summoning the god.
God.
Hold on. Give me FAU. FAU, it's going to be a close game, but San Diego State, man, I just don't think that they can match the inside game, the rebounding. Yes, they play great defense. I understand, Austin. Let me finish my point, and I'll get to that. But they're not going to be able to box out Vlad Golden. They out-rebounded Kansas State 44-22. The only reason Kansas State was that close in it was because of Marquise Noel. San Diego State doesn't have him. Give me Florida Atlantic. It's going to be a good game. Wouldn't be surprised if it goes either way, but I will accept your bet. Double down or nothing. It's fine. I'm riding the Owls. Let's go.
Let's go. And Aztec's going to take on an owl all day long.
I will say, hold on real quick. I will say, the one thing that worries me, and if FAU loses this game, it's going to be for one reason and one reason only. They had 22 turnovers against Kansas State. They turned the ball over a lot. So
I have that as a negative.
Yeah, if FAU loses, don't be surprised to see that turnover number around 22 or so.
They turned the ball over quite a few times against Tennessee too, and they've just. Yeah. But that kind of makes me think that they're going to win this game even more because 2 games in a row they've been so turnover prone and they've still pulled it out.
Yeah.
So and now they have a week to prepare.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard for me to. And like I said, I'm not rooting for them, but I can't pick against them. I've done it enough, and I can't anymore. Yeah. Andrew, who you got?
If I lose this, though, I'm going to have to rent a box truck. We're going to keep betting all year long. I bring down a box truck full of beer.
Next thing you know, we're going to have a keg. All right, this one's for a keg.
In this one, I've actually got San Diego State. I think if you can beat Alabama, you can beat anybody in this tournament. I think they win the close ones, and with the turnover problem, I think it's going to be a close one. And I think San Diego State wins those every time. So I've got them taking it in a close one.
As far as Alabama goes, talk about Brandon Miller.
Horrible.
Talk about Brandon Miller all year long, but at the end of the day, he wasn't a shooter. He's just more of an assist man.
Ben Simmons? Anyone?
Anybody? Nobody? Is nobody realizing that Joe? We'll just leave it alone. So we'll move on.
Right over my head.
I see what you did there. We'll move on.
There it is.
We'll move on, but I see it.
We'll move on to the next game. Of course, the U versus UConn. Hart says the U. The hard defense. Can they stop UConn's shooters? They didn't do a great job of stopping Texas's shooters, but they did it in big moments. I want to see the U win this game. But I can't pick them. I've got UConn. They've just been way too impressive. I have not seen them slip up one time this tournament. Anytime I see them play, they're just absolutely dogging on who they're playing. I don't think that it's going to be a blowout by any stretch. I think it'll come down to the last couple of possessions. I think it'll be another very high-paced, shoot the lights-out game. And like Andrew said, I agree 100%. I hope they're both playing their best basketball because that has the possibility of being an all-time game. Would not be surprised to see it come down to a buzzer beater, but I can't go away from the Huskies.
So here's the thing. I mean, UConn's been the best team in the tournament thus far. I feel like they've been the story of the tournament because they've dominated everybody. But this game's going to be close. You said it. Which team is more battle-tested? Miami. Who's had to hit more clutch shots? Miami. UConn hasn't been battle-tested like that.
But they've been so hot that they don't have to be battle tested. They just blow everybody out of the water, even against Gonzaga.
Hold on. So what you're telling me is, do you think UConn's going to beat the crap out of Miami?
I don't think they're going to beat the crap out of them. But
if what I was about to say, if it's a close game, I think Miami has the advantage in that aspect. They have the better defense under 2 minutes left. I feel like they've been battle tested. They can hit the clutch free throw. Say they're up by 2 points with 30 seconds left. They get fouled. Jordan Miller, he's going to hit the free throws. Isaiah Wong, he's going to hit the free throws. UConn hasn't been battle tested. They haven't proven it to me in that aspect. Also, I think Jim Larinaga is just going to outcoach Dan Hurley. I love Dan Hurley. Don't get me wrong. I think Jim Larinaga right now is the best coach in the Final Four, and I don't think it's particularly close. Give me the U. It's going to be a close game. It's going to come down. It's going to be a lot like the Texas game. It's going to be a lot like Miami and Texas. But it's going to come down to, can Miami hit their free throws down the stretch? They did against Texas. They're going to be able to do it against UConn, and UConn's not going to be able to hit those clutch shots because they haven't been put in that situation yet in this tournament.
I think the nerves could definitely play a factor, a huge factor. If it is a close game, I will agree with you, and I will go Miami. But I think with as hot as UConn has been playing, I think they've definitely got it. But like I said, if it's a close game, I take Miami.
Hot against who?
And Andrew,
Hot against who? I'm 100% on
Andrew.
Well,
Who's your
Andrew
pick?
kind of didn't make his pick. Who's your pick?
I've got UConn. Overall, UConn's got it.
You kind of lean for both.
I am leaning for both because I do like James says, my heart says Miami. I'd love to see them, our mascot thing we got going on. So I'd love to see them win because Hurricanes.
Be great for the brand.
Yeah, but I think UConn's got it. They've been playing too well. They haven't been battle tested in a close matchup, but they hold Gonzaga at 54 points. I mean, that's crazy.
Gonzaga's from Miami, brother.
We'll see, I guess.
I can't fight against that defense. That defense in the late game and just the free throw shooting. You literally are saying what I'm written down.
Are we about to agree again? Come on now.
No, this is our side. Those guys over there, they've got their UConn. This is where we ride together. We split 2-2 on the last one. We're 2-2 on this one. It's just a different pairing. I'm riding the U. I don't even need to fight it. I don't need to hide my answer. It's the U. It's a tank rolling down a mountainside. It's the hurricane that swept up the tide. It's got the tide. It's ×4 now. We've already went over this. You can't stop that. You're not stopping it. The defense is too good late game. UConn hasn't had the pressure. They haven't had to have the clutchness. They haven't had to have any kind of performance in late game. It's not needed of what they've had so far. And every game, the U is fighting it. They're fighting in those late games. They put up 13. There was a 13-2 run in the last 3 minutes of that game. That's filthy, filthy.
Yeah,
it's just good defense, good free throw shooting.
It reminds me of that Kentucky team that faced Wisconsin in the Final Four, where they really weren't battle tested or anything because they really did just kind of run through everybody. Wisconsin put them to the test. Wisconsin had a great defense that year, and Kentucky was put to the test. They weren't ready for it, and they lost. And that, to me, that's what tournament basketball is all about. When you get down to the Final Four, that's what can happen.
All right, so this next round is going to be interesting. So we all have different pairs here.
We do.
I've got UConn against Florida Atlantic, and if UConn's beating Miami, they're not going to lose to the Beach Boys. I've got UConn beating Florida Atlantic by 13 is my exact prediction.
So I've got Miami and Florida Atlantic. A little Florida action here. Miami is just too good, man. Their defense, their coaching, the way they play basketball, man, they're just too good. And at the end of the day, it's a little flashback here to what we were just talking about. The turnovers get the best of Florida Atlantic because that Miami defense. If Florida Atlantic's turning it over 22 times against Kansas State, they're turning it over 30 times against Miami. And Miami's taking it. Give me the U.
I have San Diego State versus the U, and I'm going the U. If San Diego State wants to take this to a close game, it doesn't matter. San Diego State wants to take this to a close game, the U is the wrong team to take it to with a close game. That late game defense is exactly what I just said with UConn. You're not going to come out on top in the late game against that. Also, I've now been so spirited, I've now woken this thing up on my lap. It's been sleeping the whole time.
So I've got UConn and San Diego State. San Diego State, I feel like they paved the way for UConn because they knocked out Alabama, and I think UConn's been playing too good all tournament long, and they're just going to keep riding that wave. I think they've got it. I don't think it's going to be close. I've got them by 12 to 15, I think.
I think
we got two UConns and two Miamis.
We both agree on something. Whoever wins UConn Miami wins it all.
Wins it all.
That should be the national championship.
Oh, it should be.
Yeah. Now,
100%.
Now, the two teams I'm rooting for in the Final Four, Miami and San Diego State, I think of the 4 teams left, I think that would be the best game. Austin's pick, I think that would be the best game. They're very, very similar. They play tough defense. They knock down shots. They're both well coached. So that could be the most exciting game. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. And, you know, we will reconvene next week and be able to reflect on what happened. And hopefully it's the U and Mascotology is just one.
Dude,
for
I would
one.
love that.
It'd be
I really
awesome.
would love that. Dude, I'm so ready for that Miami UConn game. I cannot wait.
I'm
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah,
It
awesome.
can't-
I'm a big boy over here, so it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So the last point here, some debate here. I was reading on ESPN. I saw a video. Seth Greenberg. Do you think that it's more fun to have a Final Four like this one, or a Final Four like last year, and that is all blue bloods? You had UNC, Duke, Kansas, and Villanova.
Can I just make one? This is the only point I want to make, just real quick.
Okay.
We all 4 picked different championships, right?
Yeah.
That's why this is more fun.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know. That's what makes these games. That's why I'm going to watch these on Saturday. Because you just don't know. Kansas played Villanova in the Final Four last year. We all knew Kansas was going to win that game. We all knew it was going to happen. We just don't know, man. This is fun because these are teams that you don't know a lot about because you haven't been watching them all season long. So you're excited to see what they can bring to the floor. So because of the parity of it, because you never know what could happen. I mean, it could be Florida Atlantic and Miami. It could be San Diego State and Miami. It could be San Diego State and UConn. Who knows? That's what makes this fun. I'd rather have this all day, every day.
So, as a North Carolina fan, I feel like the easy thing here to say would be to go Blue Bloods. But I hate Duke. I don't want them to be in the Final Four. I'm not a Villanova guy. I like Jay Wright, Philly guy. Hate Kansas. As somebody who's just watching this tournament, I think that just as the casual viewer, this is much more fun, just of what you said. And something that's very interesting to me is that in this Final Four, all 4 teams, there are 0 McDonald's All-Americans and 0 true freshmen on these Final Four teams.
Yeah.
And in college basketball nowadays, it's all about who can get the most one and dones. I wish they'd bring back the go straight to the pro rules so we could get guys who will go and, develop their game. And being a North Carolina fan, I like that we develop players. Sometimes they don't always turn out in the NBA. We see Armando Bacot coming back for his 5th year. I love that these teams are just gritty guys who have been with these programs. They've believed in these programs, and now they're on the biggest stage possible. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen on Saturday. And so, obviously, if North Carolina's in it, that's going to make me very happy. I wish they would have pulled it out last year. That's 2 of my teams losing the championship in the last calendar year, but whatever.
I mean,
Give me one like this year.
as fans of blue blood teams like we are, Kentucky and North Carolina, I guess the way I would rather word it is if my team's not in it, I'd rather have
Yeah.
it like this year. That's
Agreed.
the way I would word it. Yeah.
Definitely. Now, viewers, on the other hand, they might say, the viewership, if you ask CBS, they're like, oh, well, people are going to show up and watch the Blue Bloods, and the viewership's not going to be great for these games. And I think that's garbage, man. I think that's false.
I agree with you, but I'm going to play devil's advocate. North Carolina Duke Final Four last
I
year
know,
was
I
like a
know.
different animal. So
Yeah, you're not going to beat that, but
Yeah.
still going to be exciting. You're going to have a different crowd watching
Yeah.
this game, just for the intrigue.
I want to say, Jordan, stop logging in and looking at my notes that I'm writing because it's really it's kind of getting frustrating.
I'm sorry.
I said, I literally go, Blue Bloods are not better because, in my opinion, you can expect things easier. The parody is more fun, and I want to view it. And you literally just said that, and then I go on to James's point of, unless I'm a network television spot, because I think it's better if I have a Kentucky Duke, North Carolina Duke matchup, a Villanova Kansas, 2 big blue bloods going at it.
Yeah.
You're gonna get the whole fan base is watching it. You're gonna get viewership from people that might not care just because it's entertaining. It's parody. It's not something I see every day. But I think you're gonna get more. I mean, I don't work for a TV ratings company, so I don't know, but I would believe it would be more with the 2 big teams going at it.
But let me ask a question that would go kind of away from that. So, say like Florida Atlantic students, people that go to Florida Atlantic, they don't care anything about basketball. Their team making a run, or San Diego State goes the same way. Their team making a run to the Final Four, all of a sudden they might be a college basketball fan for life because of
Yeah.
what happened in this tournament. So, in the long run, it could probably be pretty good for the sport, right? Like, could be good for viewership, could be good for the networks. Yeah, maybe they'll take a hit on the game Saturday night, but over the long run, it's going to help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I can
I
definitely see
agree
that.
with that
That's
100%.
a good point. That's a great point. Andrew, what do you?
As far as me, I this year I take this year every time. I've never had like a true like I know James, you've been with North Carolina, UNC for forever. Jordan, you've been with Kentucky about the same time, I'm sure. Um, I've never had a true team of mine for college basketball, but recently pulling for UT, but that's always a disappointment every year. But I take a tournament like this year every single time. I love that you get players that aren't in the limelight every year or every game. They're not on they're not on televised events every game. It's just who's gonna win. It's up in the air, and I love it. I love seeing the guys that don't get the shot, and you have Curry from Davidson, and he comes out and shows out at the biggest stage. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I take a bracket like this or a tournament like this year every
It
year.
just means more to the players because they know they probably don't have a future in the NBA. A lot of these guys do. I mean, you look at
Yeah.
these teams that are in there, maybe 3 or 4 of them have a
Mhm.
future in the NBA. But whereas when you have Kentucky, North Carolina, Duke, whatever, you're talking 12, 14 of them have a future in the NBA. So it just means more. A lot of these guys, it could be their last game playing basketball.
Yeah, definitely.
Going to be a fun one on Saturday, and I very much look forward to it. What Seth Greenberg said was an unconventional Final Four is okay for 1 year.
I take it every year.
If my team's not going to be in it, give me this every year, man,
I
because it's
agree.
so much
Oh, yeah.
fun. And
Yeah.
like I said at the top of the pod, this tournament has done a lot for me as a college basketball fan, and I'm glad to be back on that bandwagon. I might not be quite as passionate about it as I once was, or like I would have a heart attack during every North Carolina game. That's probably better for me as I get older. But just watching competitive basketball is great, and I hope that what Jordan says is true, that this tournament creates college basketball fans for life.
Yeah, for sure.
This was a good one, boys. Looking forward to Saturday. We can chop it up after that, and Jordan will be here with me, and it'll be a lot of fun.
We all agree?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Go
sir.
Canes.
Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Till next time, go Birds.